Jesus make it lemonade, lemonade. I wash my worries, wash away, lemonade. It's gonna be okay. I give me some lemons, but my Jesus, he be making lemonade with that living water. Spirit, Son, Holy Father, never thought he really got us. I guess he just forgot that God works everything for better. No matter what the weather, he knits it all together. Cozier than a sweater. I'm lighter than a feather. Just thinking about the things you've done. You makes it sound.
Well, good morning again, Redmond AG. If we haven't met before, my name is Maggie. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm married to Rob, who is our lead pastor, who is leading worship for us this morning, which was awesome. And I'm so excited to get to be sharing with you. Yeah, let's clap for the worship team. That was great. That was great. And we have been in a series called Lemonade, where we're looking at how God takes life's lemons and turns them into lemonade. And last week we had our summer splash, which was so much fun. Our kids were outside doing water activities. We had a barbecue. It was an amazing time. And we're just going to celebrate that we had 11 baptisms last week. That was incredible. Such a win. God is doing amazing things. Well, we are in part 3 of Lemonade this week, and I don't know about you, but in our house we keep finding examples of lemon to lemonade everywhere, and I think we're driving our boys crazy because we're constantly sharing another story. Like, for example, earlier this week when it was so smoky that our boys couldn't really play outside and it was hot, we happened to get a care package in the mail from their grandma that day that had brand new books and a video game that they could play, but it was like a collaborative game that they played together, and it was awesome. They had so much fun, and we were like, see guys, it was the lemons of the smoke, but you got a lemonade of a gift. Like, we're just finding these examples all over the place. It's kind of even changing our perspective. Well, before we jump into the text for this morning, if you guys could stand to your feet, we are going to pray and just ask God's blessing on this time of message. God, we just thank you so much for the amazing worship that we had, this time that we had to draw close to you. And I just pray that that moment won't stop, that as we go through this message, Lord, that you'll just speak to our hearts, that you will touch us, that we will leave here motivated to be different, to seek harder after you. We just pray your blessing on this gathering. In Jesus' name, before you sit down, go ahead and give a high five to your neighbor, and then we'll get started. Awesome. Well, if you grew up in church, today's character will probably be a little bit familiar because he was, in fact, a wee little man. But we are turning to Luke chapter 19. If you want to open that up, Luke 19, starting at verse 1. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. Well, before we continue on, it's kind of clear to us just from that statement that Jesus is on a journey in this time period. And it's near the end of Jesus's ministry. In fact, this is actually going to happen on Jesus's last week on earth. And Jesus, his ultimate destination is the city of Jerusalem, where he will be eventually put to death on the cross. But Jesus, he's already done a lot of teaching. He's healed so many people. He's fed the 5,000. He's calmed the storm. And wherever he goes, a crowd seems to form around him because he's very popular by this point. People are following him. They want to hear from his teaching. They want to be healed by him. He constantly has a crowd around him. So that's what's happening. Jesus is on this journey, and there's a large crowd that's following him. Verse 2, it says, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. Now, Zacchaeus, he's not just any tax collector. He is the chief tax collector. So basically, he's in a superintendent type role over other tax collectors. And the way that tax collectors got extra wealthy was by charging other people more than necessary and pocketing the extra. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I would suspicion that since Zacchaeus is superintendent over other tax collectors, he's probably taking cuts from other people under him. So he's wealthy and he is not well liked because people know that he's been cheating them from their taxes. But Zacchaeus, he's in this massive crowd that's going on. And in verse 3, it says, he, being Zacchaeus, tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. For Zacchaeus, in this story, the crowd kind of represents a lemon. I mean, we have this guy who's not super tall. He's trying to get closer to Jesus, and this crowd is just in his way. It's this obstacle that he didn't ask for. It just happens to be there. And those kind of obstacles, they're just a part of life. Crowds, obstacles in our way happen. But crowds can be really annoying. I remember last summer, my sister and I went to a concert at the Moda Center, and all of the tickets were expensive. So for us, we had to get the cheap seats, which were still expensive, which put us in the dead last row of the Moda Center. And we were behind, I think it's like the Blazer scoreboard that hangs down. If we were sitting normal in our seats, we couldn't see the stage. We had to go like this to try to see. We were in the worst seats possible, but we still had fun. We made lemonade out of it. It was hilarious, but the crowd was so annoying. We couldn't see very well. And Zacchaeus is in the instance where he can't see. This crowd has happened, but other obstacles that might happen in our life might be sickness happens, wildfires happen, death happens, problems happen, these things that we don't ask for that are in our way. And these kind of lemons, sometimes they can block our view. Sometimes obstacles that come up in life, it feels like it's just right in front of our eyeballs and that we cannot see around it, that it's just stuck right there. And maybe we didn't get to choose the obstacle, but maybe we can shift where it's at in our perspective of vision. And Zacchaeus, though he has this obstacle in his way, this what I call lemon vision, he chooses to find a way around it. But isn't it interesting? What if Zacchaeus had got so frustrated by the fact that there was a crowd that he just turned and left? I mean, wouldn't that have been easier to say, just, I'll catch Jesus another time. I'm sure he'll pass my way another time. Not knowing probably that the time that Jesus had on earth was very short. But Zacchaeus, he keeps going. He pushes past the obstacle. He's choosing not to let the lemon of a crowd hold him back. So what does he do? Verse 4 tells us, Zacchaeus runs on ahead and he climbs a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. Now, this is kind of a funny picture to think about. I mean, when was the last time you saw a grown man climb a tree? We had a friend who visited us when we were living in Montana, and we took him on a hike. And at the top of this hike, there was a spot where our boys would kind of climb in the trees. And our friend got up in the tree with the boys, and it's funny. It's funny to watch somebody climb a tree. And so we have this picture of Zacchaeus. He's scrambling up this tree. And I did look up a picture of a sycamore fig tree, and they do have these wide kind of branches that come out. So it kind of was a little more of a natural climbing process, but he's really motivated. I mean, if you're so motivated to climb a tree, he really wants to see Jesus. He wants to get close to him. He's doing everything that he can. And when we step back from the obstacles that try to block us, and we get some perspective and we shift our focus to look for Jesus, things in our life can really change. And things in Zacchaeus' life are about to really change. But you kind of have to wonder, why was Zacchaeus so motivated to see Jesus? Zacchaeus had a lot of money. He was probably set as far as his earthly needs. And while maybe not everybody liked him, he had a prominent position. He had some leadership and authority. But something in his life is clearly lacking. Something is driving him to seek out Jesus. Because even though he had things, He wasn't satisfied. You know, sometimes those things that we chase after in life can create more problems for us. And I wonder if for Zacchaeus, his chase for money had just caused him more problems. That's why I always tell my husband we'll never get a boat. I hear they just give you more problems. But sometimes the things, they fill our life with problems instead of the solution that we think we're gonna have. And that's our first point, that life gives us the lemons of empty pursuits, but Jesus gives us the lemonade of purpose. Zacchaeus had the stuff, but was still empty. And he's motivated to see past the crowd for something better. And when we seek Jesus, it's not like we end up lacking. When we seek him, we're gonna get filled. Just like Rob talked about last week with the woman at the well, that living water from John 4:10, that satisfies our needs. And Jesus is going to fill the void in Zacchaeus' life. Jesus is gonna speak purpose and meaning and life into Zacchaeus, just like he wants to speak purpose and meaning and life into us today. So Zacchaeus, he's up in a tree. And verse 5, when Jesus comes by, he looks up at Zacchaeus and he calls him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, come down quick. I must be a guest in your home today. Now, it might be easy to blow past this, but it's important that Jesus calls Zacchaeus by name, because names are important. Names communicate value and a sense of knowing. And Jesus calls to Zacchaeus using his name. And that's why it's so awkward, you know, when you forget somebody's name, because it does carry that weight of value, and you feel so bad when you suddenly forget a name because you don't want them to think that you don't care about them. I am the worst at hearing names. Like when I meet somebody for the first time and I hear the name, it's like in one ear, out the other. Like it just doesn't, it's a hard one for me. I gotta work really hard to hear it and then remember it, repeat it. But names are important. I remember when they first started writing names on the Starbucks cups, at least at my local Starbucks, I was like in high school when they started doing this, and they'd ask my name, and I'd be like, Maggie, and they're like, oh, okay, Macy? No, Maggie? Oh, okay, Miley? I mean, I swear, they never got my name right. I think they're better at it now, but I was like, are you even listening to me? Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? Like, I did not feel valued there. And then it's so awkward if you don't remember the right one. We had these twins in the nursery at our last church in the ones room, and they were identical twins. And one of them had a harder time, usually at drop-off, than the other. And I would always try to remember which one that was, and then to give report at the end of like, okay, this one didn't cry as much. This one ate a whole lot of puffs. And you try to get it straight for the mom, but names can be tricky. But it's important to us. It's value to say it right, to remember it. And what's so awesome is Jesus didn't just know Zacchaeus' name. He knows all of our names. He knows all of us. And it doesn't just stop at the name. Jesus understands our life experience. He understands our struggles and our joys. He gets it. He understands all of it, and he cares about all of it. You know, many times life gives us the lemons of rejection, but Jesus gives us the lemonade of being known. Rob gave a great message earlier this year from our Wired series. It was the first message called Wired to be Known, in which he talked about how Jesus knowing us can sort of sound scary at first, especially if you don't really know Jesus. You're like, who is this Jesus that knows everything about me? But in reality, that's the greatest comfort, to be known by Jesus. And David wrote in Psalms 139, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my laying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. You lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. David can't put into the words, really, the meaning of what it is to be known by God. And he knows each one of us. He knew Zacchaeus. He knew us. He knows what's going on in our life, and that's good news. So we're going to see how that plays out for Zacchaeus. In verse 6, it says, Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. Really, here we have the return of the lemon crowd already. I mean, Zacchaeus, he's had this awesome moment where he climbed a tree to try to see Jesus, but unbeknownst to him, Jesus had a divine appointment in mind with him where he's called him out and he says, I'm coming to your house. Like, even though you've done a lot of wrong, I'm coming to hang out with you. And the lemon crowd is already there wanting to tear him down. Why would Jesus do that? Why is he going to the house of this notorious sinner? You know, I wonder if Zacchaeus heard any of that grumbling. We don't know. But either way, he didn't let it get in his way. His focus is not on the lemon, but on Jesus. And he takes Jesus to his house. He keeps going, keeps pursuing after Jesus. And just like Jesus knows our name, he also knows our sin. Same for Zacchaeus. He knows everything. And Zacchaeus, he created some of his own lemons in life by his sinful choices of cheating people. And we've all done that as well. Jesus knows our lemons, yet chooses to pursue us anyway. And the crowd called Zacchaeus a notorious sinner, and they really weren't wrong. He was. But really, we've all been there. We all could have been called a notorious sinner before meeting Jesus. Because sin is anything that separates us from God. It's when we miss the mark of the perfect standard that God has for us. And sin doesn't just hurt us, but it hurts others. And sometimes we get it backward, this thought that I have to clean up everything about my life first before I can let Jesus in. But that's not what we see in the story with Zacchaeus. That Jesus, he's asking for a relationship even amidst the mess. He's not waiting for Zacchaeus to clean anything up. And Jesus sought him out amongst the crowd. He says, I want to know you, Zacchaeus. And Romans 5:8 tells us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. We don't have to get it all cleaned up and shiny first. His sacrifice that's about to happen happened for us, even amidst our not choosing to follow him. And many times we live with the shame of sinful lemon living, but Jesus forgives us. Maybe you've been that notorious sinner, but Jesus has a new purpose in mind for you today, a new plan and a new label to wear that's not that. And verse 8, it starts with a powerful word. It says, meanwhile. Well, meanwhile, I guess doesn't really sound like a powerful word, but as we look at this context, it is something is happening. We might say, meanwhile, what? So Zacchaeus, he climbed the tree because of the crowd, because he couldn't see. Jesus points to him, says, I'm coming to your house. Zacchaeus scrambles out of the tree. They go off. And then we hit, meanwhile. Meanwhile, what? You know, wouldn't it have been fun if it told us the whole story? But we don't really know all the details of what happened next. Wouldn't it have been interesting to know, what did Jesus and Zacchaeus talk about? You know, did Zacchaeus tell Jesus his life story? Did Jesus just listen? Did Jesus teach him something? Did he talk about the kingdom? Did he allude to his coming sacrifice? What did they eat? How long was it? We don't know anything. It just says, meanwhile. But something powerful happens in that meanwhile. Because as we keep reading that verse, it's, meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor, Lord. And if I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much. Something really powerful happened in the meanwhile. A transformation for Zacchaeus happened in this meanwhile. The change didn't happen when he climbed the tree. The change didn't happen when Jesus called his name, but the change happened when Zacchaeus spent time with Jesus. That's when everything changed. And the greatest transformation does happen when we spend time with Jesus. James 4:8 tells us, come close to God and God will come close to you. And Luke doesn't share the whole conversation, but he tells us the results, that this guy has been totally changed. Think Christmas Carol type level transformation, but it didn't take 3 ghosts. It took 1 Jesus. And this guy, he's ready to give all his money back and even more. He's motivated. Spending time with Jesus transformed Zacchaeus' life of lemons into lemonade. And I don't think Jesus changed him by making him feel guilty. I think he changed him by inviting him into relationship, into the meanwhile. And the same can be true for all of us. When we spend time with Jesus, he transforms our lemons into lemonade. When I think of transformation, I think of the epic scene at the end of Beauty and the Beast, when the Beast is transformed back into the prince. I don't know if it's been a while since you've seen that, but it's this epic, amazing music, fascinating transformation. And sometimes we think of life transformation as being like that, as this magical 180 big life change. And that's kind of what happens for Zacchaeus. This is a pretty quick transformation. But I think for a lot of us, transformation, or another word for that in our faith journey, is sanctification, which is the process of becoming more like Jesus when we know Jesus. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it's the everyday moments that lead to life transformation. It's more like the bugs that I have in my house right now. So my boys, they wanted a pet. They wanted a cat or a dog, but we're still in this adoption journey that we just believe God has called us to. We don't know when it's going to happen. And so, I don't know about getting a pet when we don't know if we're going to, bring a baby into our house at some point. Also, our youngest has really bad cat allergies, so that kind of puts that out the window. So I told my boys, we're not going to do a normal pet, but what if we get some bugs for the summer? So we got some of those bug habitats, and one of the ones that we got is a ladybug habitat. And I did not know this until purchasing this, that when you get ladybug larvae, they don't look like ladybugs. I had no idea. Ladybug larva almost looks like an earwig meets an alligator. They're these long, black, ugly little things. Really, it's kind of gross to watch them. They're not cute at all. And they spend several weeks in this larva stage. So on my kitchen table right now, I have a ladybug habitat with 7 ugly ladybug larvae crawling around in there. And my boys water them with little water droplets, and we give them tiny pieces of raisin. So those are our pets right now. But eventually, after a few more weeks, those larvae turn into pupa, which is even uglier looking. They're gonna get squishy and gloopy and be like that for about a week, and then they emerge as a ladybug. That's the kind of slow transformation maybe we face in life. So maybe you're a little bit like an ugly ladybug larva today. That's okay. That's okay. Jesus has plans for you. There's transformation to be found, but often it can happen in the meanwhile. Just like for the ladybugs. In the meanwhile, everyday moments of reading our Bible, praying, spending time with God, gathering with God's people, serving alongside fellow believers, spending time in the presence of God. That is where we become more like Jesus. And sometimes we can get tempted to keep Jesus at the church as my one day a week where I get close to Jesus and then sort of do my thing the rest of the week. But just like Jesus pointed out Zacchaeus and said, I'm coming to your house, Jesus says that to us this morning. I'm coming to your house. And what would life look different if Jesus is at our house on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Maybe that's a little stressful. I'm totally the person who, if I know somebody's coming to my house, I clean the whole house. We were potentially going to have house guests last night. We had some friends who were going to be speaking in Central Oregon, and their plan was to stay out at Ochiko, but that camp is totally shut down with the fires, and they were needing a place, so they're like, hey, can we stay? We, of course, said yes, and then I proceed to clean the whole house because somebody might be coming, and that's just how I was raised, that you clean the whole house if somebody's coming. That's how I love people. But Jesus, he's not expecting that because he knows that we're people. He understands our position, and he's not asking you to clean everything up. He's asking to be invited in, to be in relationship. And it's more than just Sunday. And for some of us, maybe that's already a regular part of our life, to meet with Jesus every day. But for some of us, maybe that's a new rhythm to start. But as we're in this process of the meanwhile of transforming, it's a great opportunity to know Jesus more, to ask questions, and to listen. And if that's not a regular rhythm for you, a great goal for this week could just be to carve out 10 minutes of your daily schedule. Open up to Luke 19, this passage that we've been reading. Read it for yourself. And then ask yourself a couple questions. What does this tell me about God? What does this tell me about me? And what's an action step I can apply to myself from knowing those things? It just takes a few minutes to build that rhythm. We don't have to overcomplicate it. He's just asking for that relationship. So Zacchaeus, he's had this profound moment. He's being transformed. And Jesus says in verse 9, Jesus responded, "Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be the true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost." Now let me remind you, this is Jesus' last week on earth. He knows he's about to die. And if I knew I was about to die, I would probably be doing bucket list type items. Like, I'm gonna hike Kilimanjaro. I'm gonna sail down and step foot on Antarctica. Or I'm gonna trek across Easter Island. But for Jesus, meeting with Zacchaeus, that is a bucket list item for Jesus. Because his whole entire purpose of being on the earth was to seek and to save the lost. And he wouldn't have just done it for Zacchaeus. He would have done it for you. You would have been a bucket list item on Jesus' list to meet with. How do I know that? Because everything that he does next, what we're going to talk about next week, the cross, which is the ultimate lemon of death, Jesus turns it into the ultimate lemonade of eternal life. He offers that. He goes through that for each and every one of us. Knowing all our names, knowing all our lemons, knowing all our struggles, all our joys, he chooses to go to the cross for every single one of us to seek and to save, because that was his purpose. That was his purpose for being here. So as we pursue Jesus in the meanwhile, we become more like him. And maybe for you, you have had kind of that life transformation, and maybe a bigger struggle for you has been just lemon vision. There's been obstacles in your life that you haven't asked for, that are in your way, that make it hard to see around them or hard to see Jesus. Well, you can get some perspective today. Just like Zacchaeus chose to climb the tree, we can choose to lift our eyes off of maybe what seems dead set in front of our face. We can lift them up to Jesus and choose to focus on him instead of those things that we cannot control. We can turn our eyes to Jesus this morning. And in a moment, we are going to end with a song today. And I invite you to spend some time in the meanwhile. Spend some time leaning into Jesus, praising him, listening to him, drawing close to him. But before we do that, if you want to grab your connection card, we update the points on the connection card side of this each and every week. This is how we respond to the truth of God's word. The first box is I choose to follow Jesus today for the first time. And if you mark that, someone from our team will reach out. We'd love to give you resources and support as you start this faith journey. Or I want Jesus to transform an area of my life is the second one. I want to spend more time with Jesus this week. Or I'm so glad Jesus pursues, knows, accepts, and transforms me. And I encourage you that when we head into this time of reflection and drawing close to Jesus and the song, to maybe take some time and fill this out. You can also write prayer requests or wins on here that you want to share. We read each and every one of these. But we are going to sing that song, Center, again. And when it says, you be the center of it all, we're singing that to Jesus. And I just encourage you to shift your vision from maybe an obstacle in life onto him. Or maybe if you haven't entered into relationship with him, take this time to start to get to know him. Make him the center of your life. Begin that life transformation. So let's stand to our feet. Let's take a few moments and then we'll sing together and seek Jesus in the meanwhile.